Well, guys, I lost. And I'm going to tell you all about that on the other side. So, without any further ado, let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is John from Flipping Ain't Easy. And yes, it's not clickbait. I did lose. And I have never had this experience before, guys. I have been doing this eBay gig for a long time. And while I've been involved in this process, I have not yet lost until this last week, about a week ago. And that is a chargeback. I lost $114 on a chargeback, and it was that situation. You guys remember the video I put out about a month ago, and I'll put the link somewhere up here if you want to check that out to see the first part of it. And essentially, this is the chargeback where I sold the rolling commode wheelchair slash shower chair to this buyer, and this particular buyer filed a chargeback through her, and I believe it was her credit card institution, without going through the return process that we were in the middle of. And she acted in not in good faith, and in my opinion, she violated the credit card company's own terms, because you are required to follow through with the merchant and all their processes to remedy the situation. And she failed to do that in this case. Now, I followed the process. As you guys know, I went in and filed the dispute through eBay with the 5 photos and my side of the story. And I believe my side of the story was compelling, because this particular item, as you guys may or may not know, I don't know if I showed you in the last video, but as you can see here, the box was in bad shape. And her complaint was simply about the condition of the box. While the item inside was new and there was new packaging on the inside, the box was beat up. Because what happens is, this is an Amazon item. So the initial buyer, it's a return. So the initial buyer received it for whatever reason. They didn't need it. They sent it back to Amazon. Amazon, they throw it into just a pile of liquidation. It gets put on a truck. And I end up getting it through this company I work with. And by the time it's in my hands, the box is just jacked, if we're being honest with each other. And so I did everything by showing this photo along in the listing. It showed the buyer that the box wasn't in the best condition. So as we know, buyers don't read. They don't look at all the photos. But that doesn't, the fact that we know that, the fact that this is a common buyer behavior, doesn't excuse the behavior. And now the buyer's mad, and they're mad at me because they didn't look at the entire listing, and they entered into an agreement with me to buy the item in the condition that I have set. Now, the item is new, the box is not. But yet, that was their basis to open a chargeback, and in opening a chargeback, they kept the item. So apparently they liked the item enough, but they used the box as an excuse to open the chargeback. So now I'm out $114. Now, I did call back to eBay, and of course I didn't record that nonsense, but I did call back. They put me on hold, and they came back with a different story. Like I thought, but it is what it is. They came back and said, well, we can't do anything about it. The credit card company has taken the money, they've taken the funds, and in this case, all we can do is waive the $20 fee. So they at least waive the $20 fee that eBay charges. Ultimately, that $20 fee is pretty much the fee that the banks charge the merchant whenever there's a chargeback. And that's a lot of times why eBay is charging you that $20 fee. They gave me that money back, so good on them for doing that. I am not out $118, $114, $118, whatever it is. I'm out the cost of the label to ship to them, okay? Of course, I didn't have to pay for the return label, because FedEx doesn't charge me for that until they use it, and they never use it in this case. And it cost me $11. That was my cost of goods on this item, okay? So I am out pretty much about 40 something dollars, okay, which is not bad. And I think a lot of people freak out about the costs that they endure as sellers. And maybe it's because you're not making a whole lot on your profits. Maybe any type of expenses you have to endure makes the road a little more difficult. But you got to stop looking at these expenses as things that are affecting you now. You want to look at the entire picture, your entire year. Look at what you've made this year. Compare what you've lost, quote unquote, against what you've made this year, knowing that your losses are going to be written off anyways. And I can tell you that it's disappointing, right? Your expectation to have made the $114 and now you don't get it and you don't even get the item back, and it sucks. And this particular buyer, I'm not going to hesitate. I think they should be blocked. And if you don't want to be put into a position where you're dealing with the buyer who has no problem with taking your item and not returning it and simply keeping it for themselves and going to any means to get their refund, well, that's theft, guys. And the chargeback process should really be reserved for for sellers who are really non-responsive and don't follow the processes. Of course, the buyer has no other option than to file a chargeback with their credit card institution. But this particular buyer, NY-Hardware, and you can certainly go in and look at the transaction. I guess if you went to my store, you can find it as well. Now, that's public information, so you trolls out there, you're welcome to send them a message that I let everyone know that they ripped me off, which they did. I'm sure most people would agree that keeping an item when the seller's offered you a return label, given you a return label, and instead of sending it back, you keep it and get your money back, well, that's theft. Now, I'm not mad about it. It irritates me that there's people out there, and eBay allows people to stay on the platform. And the only complaint I have, or the only feedback I have to eBay is, anytime someone doesn't follow your process, eBay, anytime a buyer says, you know what, I know that you have a return process in hand, but forget that, I'm going to my credit card company. Anytime a buyer circumvents that process you have in place, these are your rules, eBay, by the way, then I think those buyers need to be departing the platform. And I think you guys need to do your job to help expedite that process and get those buyers out of here, because you, eBay, have a process in place to take care of problems. It's called a return policy. It's a very generous return policy. It's a 30-day return policy. Buyers have all the power in the world. Sellers have to comply, whether or not the INAD, that's a item not as described, is true or not. We have to take the return. Okay, you have a very pro-buyer policy in place, yet you cater to a lot of these buyers who circumvent that policy and use the chargeback system anyway. And I think it's one of those things where eBay should really step up and get rid of those bad buyers. And this is a bad buyer. But here's the deal, guys. If you are finding yourself, and if you sell enough stuff on eBay, you're going to deal with chargebacks. Okay, I would recommend almost every time, if you have done nothing wrong, if you have given all the information that is needed to fight the chargeback, then fight it. It's only 20 bucks if you lose, and sometimes you can even get that waived if you get the right agent on the phone. But don't let it freak you out. Don't let it upset you. $118 will probably upset a lot of people, but it's the type of items that I'm selling, that's kind of like an average item now. I mean, if it was $118 and all I was selling was 80% $10, $15 items and a few of my big items, this time it got a chargeback, I guess I'd get kind of freaked out too. But that's not it anymore. My sales are up like 60% over last year on this account. And if you look at the big picture, it ain't a big deal, guys. But coming to that conclusion, dealing with chargebacks, it's yet another example of how flipping ain't easy. And I want you to check out one of these videos here. And in the meantime, have an excellent rest of your day.